hasn't been tested and maybe has some promise and maybe gets wrapped up in the hype and maybe gets a little nervous.
Roach, credit to him, all this other stuff. And it took some politics to keep Davis as champion. You ever see guys getting to referee their own fight?
Gervonta "Tank" Davis is one of the most overrated fighters in the sport of boxing right now. And not because of his skills, but because of his resume. And resume does matter.
Joe Rogan goes off on Gervonta Davis, calling him overrated and questioning his abilities. He argues that a true champion doesn't take a knee in tough moments and must show dominance in throwing. Rogan thinks Davis has not faced real adversity and that his reputation is overhyped.
Everybody saw it. You can't get around what everybody saw. Look, it wasn't a legit knockdown like he hurt Tank. Tank did have some in his eyes, but what are you doing putting in your hair when you have a world title fight? That's crazy.
And no one want to hear about it in the middle of a fight. That no one cares. If a fly by, drop the ball, bro.
Right.
Drop the damn ball. We don't care if a fly flew by your helmet or your eyes.
Yeah, nobody gives a fuck about
that. You can't be a championship fighter and taking a knee and putting on those type of performances.
Also, what are they putting in his hair? That when he's sweating, it is dripping into his eyes. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Bro, shave your head.
Weird, right? Yeah, exactly.
Shave your head. Who cares?
Like, don't be pretty boy. You better go get this fight.
Get those braids out of there. You don't need those.
Yeah.
He's a good-looking guy. He doesn't need all that crazy braids and shit.
Yeah.
One of the biggest criticisms involving Gervonta Davis is the quality of his opponents. Many boxing analysts say that his team carefully selects fighters who are less dangerous, making sure that Davis is always at an advantage.
Shakur Stevenson would beat him in a close decision, and it would end up probably being a boring fight. But I think Shakur has the skills to beat Tank Davis over a long 12-round fight. Now we have Subriel Matias, who's a scary Terminator-like fighter who gives up the early rounds to come on later and drown you in those later rounds. But he's very stiff and he doesn't have very good footwork at all. I think Tank Davis will probably, box his face off for most of the 12 rounds. There might be some trouble in the late rounds. But if Tank can stay out of trouble, I think this is one of the few champions that he would beat, but I don't think he would fight him. Now we have Pitbull Cruz, who Tank already beat by a close decision, and Tank beat him with a broken hand.
Gervonta Davis has faced criticism for avoiding top-tier opponents, raising doubts about whether he is truly being tried at the highest level. A good example is his long-standing avoidance of Shakur. Stevenson, a highly skilled and dangerous fighter. Fans have been demanding this matchup for years, but Davis has yet to step up, fueling claims that he is ducking real competition.
Cruz only had 2 weeks to prepare for this fight. I think in the rematch, Tank would take a lot more punishment and even has the potential of being beat. If Tank's not perfect for those 12 rounds, I think Pitbull Cruz wins because he's been looking a lot better since their fight and has impressed me very, very much. Now we got Devin Haney. Devin Haney is very impressive. He really has everything. He has the defensive skills, the offensive skills. He's really showing his power and strength at 140 pounds. And even though Tank has the power, right, the only guy to really give Haney trouble is a guy like Lomachenko, a southpaw with really good footwork and boxing skills. Tank Davis is not Lomachenko. So I think Devin Haney beats Gervonta Tank Davis pretty soundly and pretty easily, as long as he doesn't get caught with something crazy. Now we have Teofimo Lopez, the first guy to really beat Lomachenko and looked very impressive doing it. Not only has he beat Lomachenko, but he also beat Josh Taylor, the former unified champion. Both very impressive victories, and even though he's been kind of inconsistent and doesn't fight as good when he fights lesser opponents, I think he has all the skills he needs to beat Tank Davis. He has the speed, athleticism, the counters, the blocks, everything you would need to beat Tank, right? So I have Teofimo above Tank as well. If Tank wants to be great, he's going to have to fight one of these guys. And Frank Martin isn't really going to do much for his stock. He's got to beat another.
Davis has frequently been accused of cherry-picking his fights to keep an undefeated record. These accusations intensified after his bout against Lamont Roach Jr., where many thought Davis's weaknesses were finally exposed. The match ended in a majority draw, and Roach's amazing resilience and skill forced many fans to rethink the narrative surrounding Davis. If he were truly an elite fighter, critics say, he would have handled Roach with ease instead of struggling to win a decisive victory.
That fight with Tank and Lamont Roach shows y'all how protected Tank has been for the past several years. And the people saying, oh, Tank know Lamont and he been respected Lamont because they fought in the amateurs. Man, he was cherry picking Lamont, you know, and really thought he was going to get that win. But Lamont wasn't coming to play around. You know, he stood his ground and fought back. And to be honest, he won the fight. The rematch is going to be a knockout.
Boxing analyst Smith highly criticized Davis for choosing to fight Lamont Roach, a much smaller and lighter boxer. He argued that if Davis is truly as talented, as people say, he should have dominated someone like Roach. Instead, Davis barely survived in their first encounter, which led Smith to conclude that Davis is overrated. This performance, he said, proves that Davis might not be as great as many of his supporters think. If he fails against Roach, how would he fare against top-tier fighters?
Gervonta's a smart dude, bro, and he said you really should have waited.
No, you should have waited. You should have waited for a little bit more time. You stuck your head out there a little too soon.
And he was right. He was absolutely positively right.
Oh, left uppercut.
And so now here we are, him fighting this cat Roach, and I'm like, isn't this dude a light, you know, like junior lightweight?
Super featherweight, moving up to lightweight. Yeah.
No, that bothers me. The reason why that bothers me is because Gervonta is too great and too skilled to be fighting dudes smaller than him. Gervonta Davis can knock out welterweights. He probably could knock out a couple of middleweights. Why are you fighting somebody smaller? Only time I approve great champions fighting smaller guys is when you're not known for your power. You're basically using your superior skill set and showing against a smaller, quicker guy that skills don't disappear.
In boxing, the word prize fighter refers to those who prioritize money over their legacy. Some critics think Davis represents this mindset, focusing more on lucrative paydays than fighting top-tier opponents to build a legendary resume. By picking safer fights, Davis ensures financial success, but sacrifices credibility among hardcore boxing fans. This method, critics say, damages the sport's competitive integrity and prevents true champions from emerging.
I've been told y'all Gervonta Tank Davis isn't a prize fighter. I know a lot of you guys say, well, he doesn't fight for belts, he doesn't fight for legacy, he fights for money. He's a prize fighter, Jerry. And I'm going to assume a prize fighter is a guy who is solely making fights based off of cash reward. He'd rather fight a bum for $50 million than fight a guy who's experienced for $10 million. That is what a prize fighter would be. Actual definition, a professional boxer who competes in matches for money prizes. So let's take a look at it. Turki Al-Sheikh has declared he wants to make Tank versus Shakur. He says, my plan for Shakur is this fight. He's referring to Floyd Schofield, then William Zepeda, and then let's see if Tank wants to be in our show. Tank's not going to fight Shakur. He's not going to fight him in Saudi Arabia. So now that we've established Tank isn't a prize fighter, because if he was, his career resume would look a whole lot different, then we must ask, what is Tank's goal in boxing? I'll tell you right now, it's easy money. Tank is the type of guy, he'd rather fight, let's say, 4 Lamont Roaches for $20 million than fight 1 Shakur Stevenson for $80 million, which is fine. But I'm tired of people saying, oh, he's a prize fighter, that's why he's not taking these fights. He's not a prize fighter. The biggest money fights is Haney, Ryan, Tio, Shakur, and Loma. He's not even going to take half of those fights. So please, guys, all my Tank fans, all my guys who claim Tank is a prize fighter, that's why he's not fighting for the belts, please stop it. This guy's not a legacy fighter. He's not a prize fighter. He's just a guy who enjoys easy paydays. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Just stop misleading people with your comments.
Many within the boxing community think the sport has become increasingly rigged, with politics playing a larger role than skill in determining outcomes. Fighters and fans alike have raised concerns about unfair judging, biased promotions, and planned results that help marketable boxers rather than the most skilled ones. This has led to rising skepticism about the legitimacy of championship fights.
I felt like boxing's pretty rigged overall.
Oh, yes, Rick, dude. I mean, so many politics, even with, MMA, man, there's so many politics. There's no more art anymore. It's just, let's get an influencer in there. I get it. It's like generating money because our attention span is so short. You look at clips now, it's like 7 seconds. I saw a dude slamming a lady the other day and they were like, oh my God, that dude is, I'm like, well, what the do? I'm just gonna pick somebody and slam them. Where's the whole video? And our attention span is just so small. So money talks, of course. Yeah, let's get an influencer in there who has no style, but it draws attention. It's just dumb.
Joe Rogan has also spoken about the issue of corruption in boxing. He argues that boxing is an incredible sport, but only when the results aren't manipulated. He thinks agreements behind the scenes often decide fights before they even happen, taking away the heart of real competition. Rogan's comments represent the growing belief that modern boxing prioritizes business deals over fair fights. Respected boxing.
We say boxing is a very effective martial art. Sure, if we make an agreement that I'm not going to pick you up and throw you on the ground, or if we make an agreement I'm not going to kick your legs out from under you. There's a great video of this Russian guy fighting this boxer, and it's a boxing versus Muay Thai fight, and it's hilarious to watch because the guy comes in trying to box and he's just getting his legs destroyed. He never gets a chance to set his feet, and then he gets head kicked and then chopped out, and then this is the end of it. He's eventually what the man? And that guy's not walking for days, by the way.
Trainer Robert Garcia weighed in on a key moment in the Davis versus Roach fight, the 9th round when Davis took a knee. Garcia insisted that referees should step in when a fighter voluntarily goes down without a valid reason, such as a low blow. According to boxing rules, a fighter cannot call for a timeout mid-round, which makes Davis's choice controversial. Garcia thinks that the referee should have handled the situation differently.
And should it have been a disqualification?
Look, it could have easily been a disqualification too, or a referee stops contest. Because look, there's no way a fighter could take a timeout and go get his, during the round. There's no way a fighter could say, okay, timeout, because he took a knee like a timeout kind of thing, and walk to his corner to wipe his face. That's fucking unheard of and never seen before. There's no way that's legal in boxing. It shouldn't have. When a fighter, we just seen it recently with Espinosa and Rubesis. Rubesis got hit with the right hand, and then he walks back and walks away, and the ref right away wiped it up.
That happened with Lara versus Angulo.
Exactly. It's over. It's over. So Tank doing that, took a knee. It should have right away. The ref should have started, counting as a knockdown. But he still walks away to his corner. I'm actually, surprised that the ref didn't call it a knockdown because he's a really good ref.
Willis is a really good ref.
Willis is a great ref, one of the best in boxing right now, and that was a big mistake. He should have counted as a knockdown. Like I told you, I wouldn't have been surprised if when he walked away, if he would have just waved it up, because that's walking away from the fight. Because of the odds, during the break, tell the corners to wipe it out. You can't do that when the fight's going on. There's no way, nothing. You can't do that when the fight's going on. You can't time out, take a knee, and walk away. There's just no way. But it is boxing, and a lot of things happen in boxing.
Joe Rogan also commented on the controversy surrounding the Davis versus Roach fight, questioning whether the rules were being fairly applied. He suggested that the way the fight was officiated felt more like a legal agreement made by lawyers rather than a competitive sports event. Rogan's remarks echoed the frustrations of many fans.
One permitted slap of their opponent. If the return strike results in a KO or TKO finish of their opponent, the match is declared a draw. If the return strike has any other result, the match result stands. That's crazy. So you can get KO'd, you get finished, they give you 2 minutes to come back, and if you could knock that guy out, then it's a draw.
They also haven't used the rule yet.
So you go knockout for knockout.
Boy, that rule looks like it's written by lawyers, doesn't it? Doesn't that rule look written by lawyers? So find out what's happening, because I think they were going to announce something today about Lamont Roach, Gervonta Davis decision.
Who thought that Davis was given favorable treatment by officials. Boxing commentator Showbiz, the adult, was highly critical of Davis's performance. He pointed out that Davis had an experienced manager in Calvin Ford and plenty of preparation time, meaning there was no excuse for his lackluster showing.
You don't know exactly how the fight would have played out if it was ruled a knockdown real time. All right, Gervonta would have definitely changed his approach, and so would Lamont Roach. So you can't really say that everything would have remained the same. So you can't overturn it.
Given his training and resources, Showbiz, the adult argued that Davis should have given a far more dominant performance. Coach Bernie also shared his thoughts, saying Davis did not defend his title in the way a champion should. He noted that Lamont Roach fought with greater urgency and desire, while Davis seemed satisfied with simply making it through 3 rounds.
Exactly. He's the champion. He got to defend his title. Like I said, they both was looking at each other. And then finally, after Tank would be the one to throw the first punch. He felt like he wanted to retain his title. Lamont Roach felt like he was just happy to be there and get the success. He wasn't trying to take the title. And I'm saying that even from the last round, the final 20, 30 seconds of the last round, he wasn't throwing no punches. He looked at him and got caught with a jab. You can't close the show with a guy like that, with a guy like Tank Davis like that. Now, if he'd have had a knockdown or something, like a real knockdown or something, maybe he feeling, but you can't stop until the bell ends. You can't, even if you're being active and slipping and sliding and something, he just standing there looking at him. I don't know. I didn't understand that. I don't understand why fighters sit there and look at each other for a long time. Change the angle. Keep a rhythm in your way. Snap a jab. Do a feint. Ain't no need of you standing there looking at no man for 20 seconds in a fight. That don't make sense. But so I think, like I say, Lamont Roach, he will be kicking himself in the ass that he didn't do more, but grateful that he did enough.
This raised questions about Davis's mindset and whether he truly had the heart of a champion. Former boxer and analyst Holly Malignaggi claimed that Davis stayed champion due to politics rather than performance. He suggested that behind-the-scenes factors played a role in keeping Davis at the top rather than his actual skill in throwing.
Tank Davis is fighting a minus 1600 as your main event odds is crazy to me, dude. That's crazy. That underdog lived up to the hype. He ended up, overperforming. Lamont Roach, credit to him, all this other stuff. And it took some politics to keep Davis as champion. You ever see guys getting the referee their own fight? Dude, anybody else takes that knee, you're getting counted, bro. The referee, actually, his instinct, if you watch that, the referee's instinct was to count. If you notice, Steve Willis started counting, and then he looked at the timekeeper outside the ring, wasn't counting, and he stopped counting. So you get to call your own timeout. Earlier in the fight, if you saw that shoulder barge that Tank did to Roach in the clinch, he didn't get a warning, but Roach's reaction got the warning. This is the politics we're dealing with. You keep doing this, you're looking at short-term money and long-term destruction of a...
Many fans agreed, thinking that Davis's promotional team carefully manages his career to keep him undefeated. Following his fight against Roach, many fans started to question whether Davis is as good as his reputation suggests. Seeing a relatively unknown fighter face him so strongly made people wonder if Davis had been overhyped.
So the Tank Davis vs. Lamont Roach rematch is being targeted for June 21st in Las Vegas. Now, it's good that they're running it back without wasting any time because Roach absolutely deserves a rematch. I thought he outboxed Tank the last time around. He came up a division as a gigantic 10-1 underdog, and he was the one on the front foot, landing his jab, the body shots, the combinations, throwing a lot more volume. I had it 7-5 Roach, and the no knockdown in round 9 was the reason it was a draw. If that knockdown was scored, that would have been a decision for Roach. But with all that being said, I do like Tank a lot more in the rematch. I thought he fought way too much on the back foot in the first fight, especially the first few rounds. He would land 1 or 2 punches per round. But as he started becoming the aggressor in the later rounds, he kept landing a lot more left hands and body shots. So Tank just needs to make this a dogfight, get into more exchanges, and that's where he'll land a lot more punches on Roach. When he's sitting on the back foot waiting for a counter, that's where Roach is comfortable and winning most of the rounds. So if Tank can fight the same way he did against Ryan Garcia, rounds 3 to 7, against Mario Barrios in the later rounds, or Frank Martin round 4 to 8, if he's the one on the front foot, then I do think he'll stop Roach in the rematch.
If he failed against Roach, how would he handle truly elite competition? These worries led to growing skepticism about his abilities. Many boxing fans and analysts think that Davis will avoid a rematch with Lamont Roach. This belief stems from Davis's past of stepping tougher matches, such as not giving Ryan Garcia a second fight.
We will never see that fight happen again. It just will not happen. Gervonta Tank Davis doesn't like hard fights. It's that simple. We've seen it over and over. He fought a Ryan Garcia drained. He fought a very inexperienced Rolly Romero. He will not fight Devin Haney. He will not fight Shakur. He will not fight Pitbull Cruz again. He will not fight Lamont Roach again. He will not fight Tefimo. He will not fight Ino. He will not fight those guys. That's just not who Tank is.
Critics say that Davis prefers to fight opponents he knows he can beat rather than risking another competitive challenge. This pattern further fuels the narrative that Davis has carefully managed to keep his undefeated record. That's it for today's show. Stay tuned until next.